Well, here we are at Deltarune-Tomorrow's. In a couple of days, Chapter 5 is going to catastrophically annihilate the entire internet. So I thought I'd get an answer to this question that I couldn't stop thinking about ever since I played Chapter 4 a little while ago. What is the relevance of Ralsei's singular, somewhat freaky moment to the broader story that Toby Fox wants to tell? To begin explaining this, we need to go back briefly to the Victorian era. Specifically, the Victorian idea of a proper or polite woman, which included the government-sponsored myth of women not experiencing sexual pleasure at all. This was pretty much a way to further control women and forcibly make like half the people on Earth fit with unrealistic Bible-related expectations. At the time, it was considered a hard rule as to how people should behave, and it lost power over time as more and more people were forced to acknowledge that it wasn't exactly fair to pigeonhole 50% of all people ever into being the same. But it never entirely went away, and it still constitutes a lot of what some consider to be traditional family values, or what have you. So, you've got the background. Next, I want to highlight the continual effect of this notion on anime and JRPGs, the kinds of JRPGs that Deltarune is heavily based on and to a certain extent parodying. In particular, in these JRPGs and anime, there's a trope of the healer, who is often probably considered an idealized woman under Victorian gender norms, put on this rather restrictive pedestal of completely sexually innocent and saintly, incredibly loyal, and possibly incapable of doing wrong or even using a powerful attack. Or if he does use a powerful attack, it's seen as funny, an exception, a clever subversion that, in being a subversion at all, insinuates the default to be innocent, helpless girl, the supposed delicate flower that needs to be protected. I think it's also worth noting that it is loyalty that's valued, not selflessness exactly. Selflessness would imply altruism is involved, but that's not what the largely male creators and consumers of these characters want, is it? These characters are framed as impossibly compassionate only towards the main character and their allies, and still willing to go along with any dangerous schemes that other people come up with. All emotion, yet no spine? Or emotion that can apparently only drive them to act in favor of their allies and never against, never to speak up, even when those motives would obviously come into conflict. In short, my point is, this type of person simply does not exist. Similar to the Victorian misinformation regarding anyone with boobs, nobody is actually completely loyal to what someone else in their personal life thinks all the time. Or, if they are, it's a problem for their own self-worth, not some ideal state that leaves them cheery to serve. Nobody older than 12 is actually completely innocent in the Victorian sense. Almost everyone has a sex drive, and even the most biologically asexual person can still know what sex is and talk about it or have opinions on it. Nobody is completely couth, in other words, in their thoughts and feelings. Nobody doesn't experience a single intrusive thought. So this is where we get to Ralsei, a JRPG healer designed to make you realize how troubling this trope is. I think this is especially evident in the fact that some players actually mistake him for a girl, despite him being referred to as a prince multiple times in his introduction. Are those players just completely illiterate? Maybe, but they've also been conditioned by a certain trope, or by the sexist remnants of a 200-year-old culture, to believe that this is the way a woman behaves. Always agreeable, always unknowing. I've never eaten cake before. Ignorance considered as a virtue. Now, finally, the incident. Do you see it yet? The reason this scene brings such upset to certain denizens of the internet, the masterful throw Toby Fox makes to land a wrench of forbidden desire straight in the cogs of the Victorian machine. Ralsei is into it, and that is human. When you look back after the scene, you're meant to wonder how much of Ralsei is him being some proper or cute or innocent little thing, and how much is just him putting on an act, capitalized, a role, an archetype to make his friends and himself happy. He says himself later in this chapter, he knows so many things that it hurts. So why wouldn't the supposedly clueless fluffy boy routine be to some extent intentional? Deltarune is a story about roles, imagined concepts, and the meaning of fiction in general. So, with all this in mind, I believe the message behind this scene is that, at his core, Ralsei is a sad teen in puberty. One can either accept this fact as a realistic and meaningful element to the character, designed to dispel notions of superhuman politeness and ignorance, or one can put him in the same gilded cage that she, the proper woman, the healer, has been subjected to by assholes, time and time again. I rest my case.